Thank you everyone for being here, for joining us here at the cemetery. For those of you who are not able to join us in person but have joined us by tuning into the online broadcast of this service, we thank you as well. We begin with a psalm. We chanted it as we process towards the gravesite, and now I'll read it in English. Psalm 121, Shir Lama'alot, a song for those who ascend. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, your guardian will not slumber. You see, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your protection, a guardian at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. God will guard your going and coming now and forever. May our beloved Shelley go unto God in peace. Hatzur tamim paulo ki chol bracha mishpat el emona ve'inav el tzadik v'yashar hu. Tzadik atarnai lamidu lachayar asher biyadcho pigadon kol ruchot chalila lachazichon limchot v'yihiu na'inech b'rachamim al nefakuchot kilcha adon arachamim v'haslichot. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach yehi shem Adonai mevorach. Behu rachum yechaper avon v'lo yashchit v'hir ba'ala shiva po v'lo yirkol chamato v'tashuv Ela Elohim asher netana ve'aruach tashuv el ha'Elohim asher netana. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. May Shelley's soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal, and may God send comfort to those who mourn and grant strength to those whose burden is sorrow. Again, thank you everyone for being here. Shelley had asked me specifically to be here today, and so I consider it a great honor as we have gathered to give honor to a very special woman, Shelley Blum, Rachel bat Shmuel Halevi Verivka, the daughter of Rose and Morris Shapiro, Zichronam Livracha, of blessed memory. We are here to pay tribute to her life and celebrate her accomplishments. We are here to show her the ultimate form of respect Jewish tradition offers, which is to accompany a loved one to her final resting place. And we are here to say goodbye, as a family, as friends, as a community. So thank you again for being here, so that we may do this together. Shelley passed away Wednesday, the 21st day in the Hebrew month of Nisan. She was 85. She will be lovingly missed by her family, Jeff and Randall, Marnie and Andrew, her grandchildren, Micah, Noah, and Zane, by her brother Butch and sister-in-law Susan. Shelley was predeceased by her parents, Rose and Morris, and by her husband, Benny Bloom, all of blessed memory. We have the opportunity today to hear from both of Shelley's children, Jeff and Marnie, who have written words of eulogy and tribute that they will share, or I may intervene and share, depending on how it goes, how many Diane Keaton moments we have. It's a little inside joke with their family. And they will talk about so much, including something that I just wanted to mention as a way of introduction, that in her quiet, stoic way, Shelley has been sick for a while, dealing with illness, never complaining, like so much of her life, keeping it to herself, never wanting to burden others. Ultimately, this illness took her life, and it reminds me of a saying from Jewish tradition, some wisdom that we often turn to in these moments here at the cemetery. We are all destined to die. We share this with all who ever lived and all who ever will be. Death is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest is better than a constant sickness. We should not hide our grief when our loved ones leave us, but we should also try to take comfort that our hopes, our prayers, are that now our loved ones can be at peace, and that all suffering has come to an end. As I mentioned, we'll get to hear from the family, and we'll start with Jeff, Shelley's son.
As the rabbi mentioned, we'll see how far I get. Our mother lived a life of courage, curiosity, and integrity. Her life spanned the fall of Hitler and the rise of Trump. Through the intervening 86 years, she had an intense interest in the world around her, voted in every election, embraced new technologies, never feared new ideas, and surrounded herself with a diverse group of people well before the term was coined. She was a voracious reader and a devotee of games of skill that made her think, and she had a great sense of humor. Our mother thought of herself as being very ordinary, and true enough, her accomplishments were modest in many ways, but she is a woman of most extraordinary character. Our mother loved boldly colored alstroemeria and always had a large vase filled with them in her living room. They are among the least expensive flowers and are quite modest in appearance. They do, however, last a long time, and they retain their bold color right until the day they lose their petals, which all fall at the same time when the flower dies. Just like her favorite flower, our mother lived modestly, was brilliant until the end, and then with little drama she left us. Shelley Blum was born in 1937 as the eldest child of Rose Leibovich and Morris Shapiro. At age 4, she was diagnosed with rickets, which the doctor advised could only be cured by bacon and exercise. So her parents were emancipated from having to keep a kosher home, and our Rabah took our mother to her first dance lesson. 12 years later, our mother was a dancer with the company when the Winnipeg Ballet Company became the Royal Winnipeg Ballet in a performance given for then Princess Elizabeth. By this time, our mother had withdrawn from school to focus full-time on her dance career, which ended a year or so later when the RWB had to shut down due to a fire at its home studio. She began working at her father's business, having turned down an offer to teach dance at the Banff School, because good single young women from North End Winnipeg generally did not run off to Banff to teach dance in that era. Several years after our mother was born, our mother had to face the challenges of being a single mother in an era when this was not ordinary. This was a difficult time for our small family of 3, and it was likely when the very powerful bonds first formed among the 3 of us. This was the early 1970s, the era of Billie Jean King beating Bobby Riggs, and her mother herself doing her gender proud on the tennis court against male opponents as well. We were and are proud of her. This was the era of our mother loading up our Zeda's pickup truck to move us out to the beach in the summer by herself. This was when our mother did everything in her power and then some to protect her children from the weirdness of being a single-parent household. This was when she had to work to support her family and still have dinner on the table every day for us, which somehow she miraculously did. This was not an easy time, but our mother was our shelter from the storm, and looking back, we can now understand what strength of character she was displaying. After a number of years, she was wooed by Ben, who she will rest beside for eternity. And after a respectable courtship, they eloped to where else? Las Vegas. Our self-stated, ordinary mother, who had friends of great accomplishment by which she judged her ordinariness, created a home for her newly melded family and supported her husband in his business. She made her home a place where a broadly melded family gathered for all occasions. Included in this package was a live-in mother-in-law, surely any newlywed woman's dream addition to a melded family. Our mother went on to provide the best care available for her parents at the end of their lives, all while providing every type of support required to a husband and a melded family. Through her actions, she taught us to be competent, to have a life of purpose, to be loyal, and to fulfill one's duty. It was around this time that our mother developed COPD. Remember the ballet? Well, in those days, the girls were encouraged to smoke, to control both weight and anxiety. So she smoked, which at the end of her life was the only regret she had. From that time to the time of her passing from the disease, our mother showed great courage, quietly fighting the illness, never involving us in her pain. She taught us courage and stoicism, agreeing to be the subject of a video and to lecture to the RWB dancers as part of their anti-smoking education campaign, choosing to help others rather than play the victim. Our mother and Ben had many good years together, though as the COPD advanced, she had to moderate her activities and learn to care for herself in order to live with the advancing disease rather than having it define her. She received excellent care and was an excellent patient. Not too many people know how ill she actually was during this period, keeping her suffering private, as would befit a true lady. At the end of Ben's life, our mother provided him with the best care available, spending long days, weeks, and months at his hospital bedside to ensure that he lived his remaining time in comfort and dignity. Our mother honored her vows. Following Ben's death, our mother lived very independently, which at times meant asking for help when circumstances dictated. Our mother was unfailingly grateful, and people who helped her became trusted friends. Chris, Ed, and Hans helped make life at River Park so much better, and dear friend Maria was an important part of her life for more than 3 decades. Our mother loved Tchaikovsky and Rachmaninoff as much as she did ABBA and Simon and Garfunkel. She dined as a guest in the great homes across this country while on ballet tour, and yet was happiest with a meal of party sandwiches, kugel, Caesar salad, and genie's cake, to her the finest of Winnipeg cuisine, with the most important addition to the meal being the friends and family that she loved to have around her. This is where it's going to get tough. Okay, Rabbi, stay close. So, our mother hoped for, rather than expected, all that came to her, and would never say that she deserved anything beyond what she earned. Our mother taught us to support our community through volunteer work, and did so herself in the schools we attended, the ballet alumni, the Jewish community, Mount Carmel Clinic, reading to the visually impaired, and working to strengthen our democracy, to name a few. Our mother loved her home and the city she spent her entire life in. She was an unapologetic Winnipeg booster. An ordinary life, extraordinarily well lived. Mother, Mum, Cruella, we loved you. You will be with us during every brilliant sunset, the roar of thunder and the flash of lightning, the first beautiful spring flowers, the brilliance of fall, and every time a new dawn breaks over the horizon. You gave us life and the tools that we need to live it well. Your work is done, your rest is earned. Be in blessed peace, your memory a blessing to all who knew you.
Thank you, Jeff. I knew you'd be able to get through it. And it was beautiful. Beautiful words on their own, but even more special for you to be able to deliver them. So, Marnie, are you going to try? Okay.
I'm little. Oh, thank you. Perfect. Thank you. So my mother taught us many practical things, such as how to enjoy a good book, to pour tea, set a table, make gefilte fish, and boiled bagels. but she taught us so much more just by being herself, as she modeled grace, loyalty, strength, and thankfulness. Throughout her life, and especially as she became more dependent upon the help of others, my mom was very grateful for the help, and she always made sure to thank people for their assistance. It became a joke between us as we helped her in her last weeks. She would thank us for adjusting her pillow or bringing her a glass of water, and we would tell her we should be thanking her. If she happened to forget to say thank you, she'd immediately follow it up with, "I mean, please, would you?" I always teased her by saying the please was implied. My mom was thankful for each day and for everything she had. A home she loved, the friendship she cherished, and the support that Jeff and I offered. Her refrain was that each day that she woke up was a good day. On her last morning, as I helped my mom get comfortable, we shared a tight hug, and we kissed each other on the cheek. And even then, half asleep, my mom whispered, "Thank you," in my ear. It was truly an honor to have had this time and to help my mom during this intimate journey, these final weeks. I'm grateful to have had this opportunity and to have shared it with Jeff. For much of my early years, as Jeff mentioned, it was just my mom, Jeff, and I, and it seemed right that it was the three of us together at the end of my mom's time with us. Jeff and I are very grateful to Randall, Andrew, and the kids for their love and support while we cared for our mother. There could not have been a more clear demonstration of your love and caring for Baba during your visit to Winnipeg in March for our last family reunion, when we were laughing, snuggling, and sharing memories. As well, we're thankful to Maria Barbosa, who's, as Jeff said, she's been part of our lives for over 30 years, and her role evolved as my mom's needs changed through the years, and whose shared confidences and discussions of triumphs and heartaches over the years were so meaningful to my mom. Thank you, Maria, for your humor, your unfailing positivity, and your magical chicken soup. Finally, we'd like to thank Hans, Chris, and Ed, whom my mother held in such high esteem, and for whose assistance and many kindnesses we are all so grateful. Your kind, smiling faces were often the first to greet us when we arrived for a visit at 141, and the last we'd see as we left for home, knowing that you were in our mom's corner. We spent my mom's last weeks just being together. There were no secrets to divulge or confessions, but my mom did make us promise to take care of each other and to be good, kind, and understanding to each other, and never let anything impede our relationship. On this note, I want to thank Jeff for being the best big brother he could be during this time and sharing moments that were in turn heartbreaking, funny, and surreal. We're thankful to have all of you with us today to Okay. My big wheel backup isn't there. To honor my mother's memory. It was my mom's hope that in the days following her death, we would focus on celebrating her life rather than grieve her passing. Would you mind?
Yes, of course.
Diane Keaton moment.
Of course. Yep. As Marnie said, it was their mother's hope that in the days following her death, we would focus on celebrating her life rather than grieve her passing. Whether you grieve or celebrate, it will be with memories of her in mind, and we are grateful to have you join us in that, as we in turn will be doing both. Thank you for your love and friendship, everyone. Thank you, Marnie.
Thank you.
when we were together as a family, preparing for the service, Marnie and Jeff reminded me that their mother was not as, I wanted to write it down, not as sentimental as her kids. But I still think she would have found these words of eulogy and tribute very, very moving. I am proud and pleased to say that I knew Shelley. About a month ago, she asked me to come and see her for one final time, and I visited her in her condo at 141 Wellington with Jeff and Marnie with us. And in that short visit, in her bed, she was absolutely the picture of everything her children have said she was today. Strength, courage. I've known her for a while. A few summers ago, I helped facilitate Zane's bar mitzvah when he was visiting. Some of you may have been there. And there were some family connections where I knew of her, and I knew Benny well from the time that I was at the Zedek, especially the beginning of my career. And he was coming for the MINYAN a lot, so I knew of them. And I always kind of pictured her. She was very cute. To me, that's really, I tried to think, is there a better word? And I just couldn't think of there being a better word, because even there lying kind of up in her bed, she was just so cute and sweet and kind. All the things that have been said that she was throughout her life. In that visit, she made a few things very clear to me. Number one, I had to be here today, which we alluded to, and I consider that a great honor. So thank you to the family, and thank you to her. Number two, when I asked her if there was anything that she wanted me to say to make sure that I said that maybe Jeff and Marnie wouldn't capture, she was very clear that I needed to say how proud she was of her kids, how they were everything to her. And they were witnesses to that, so I made good on that. And the third thing I will save until the end to kind of conclude. But there were a few stories that came out when we met again a few days ago that I felt needed to be shared because they kind of provide the full picture, at least for me, getting to know and really understand how special a woman Shelley Blum was. From her childhood, there was a story when she was very young, maybe grade 2, grade 3, and she was going to a school in the North End. We weren't sure which school. She walked in and she was little Shelley Shapiro, and she knew she was Jewish. In this particular school, it was a room full of non-Jewish kids who may not have been, let's say, very accepting of her. And the story is that she walked out of that classroom, down the street to another school, showed up at the school and said, I need to go to school here now. And they had to call her parents and say, we have this little girl here who's claiming that she needs to go to this new school. And that was her new school. But she did that. In a similar sort of, that was the first story. The second story was that in a similar sort of way, she wanted to get a driver's license, but her family wouldn't take her for a driver's license. It was a different time for girls and things back then. But she really wanted a driver's license, so she arranged for lessons on her own, and she arranged and went and got her driver's license on her own. Again, before the age of 20, these two remarkable stories for me of independence, determination, and the strength, the Shelley Blum strength that was there until the very end. I felt like those were worth sharing as well. The other thing, too, that Jeff and Marnie captured an incredible perspective, both as children, but also what many other people like her friends saw. There was a story just recently, kind of spanning the scope of her life. During the pandemic, Jeff mentioned that she was not afraid of technology, as many people's grandparents or parents are, or reluctant to embrace. She wanted to connect with many of her dear friends and continue to play cards. I mean, who doesn't love canasta? Just because it's a pandemic doesn't mean we can't play canasta. So there was a scene that was painted for me where she was in her room playing online with a few friends, some of whom were in the same building, and she was on Zoom on her iPad at the same time so that they could yell and bicker at each other while they were playing canasta. And then when someone's connection dropped, Marnie, who happened to be visiting, had to run out and run upstairs and make sure this person could reconnect. But all in the spirit of maintaining those friendships and the fun that came with it at all costs. The one thing that isn't really mentioned, because the perspective belongs to Micah, Noah, and Zane, is what Shelley Blum was like as a Baba. And I made sure to ask about that and be able to share a few words. Of course, many of you know that she and her grandchildren didn't live in the same place, really, except for pretty much every summer where there were always visits. And during the times when they did live in Canada, she would visit them. Sometimes, I reminded the family, grandkids and grandparents live in the same city and don't see each other that much. So all the more impressive it is that Shelley really, truly made an effort to be in touch with her 3 grandchildren. And again, used technology, emails, text messages, there were phone calls, and I'm told these aren't just the same kind of quick phone calls that, like, let's say my Baba likes to have with me, that take about 30 seconds to a minute just to make sure everything is good. These were in-depth phone conversations where they would talk about meaningful things that were happening in their lives, so that she could listen and truly be present in whatever they were going through. A few letters and other texts were shared with me during my visit, and I can't remember who wrote it, but one of the letters had 6 words that to me capture exactly all of the work that Shelley put into her relationship with her grandkids, individual and specific to all 3. But together, it was love well experienced and love well spent. And I know that the impression she made on them will be lasting and enduring and a blessing for them in their lives. So the final thing that Shelley Blum told me, with her children as witness, when we were visiting about a month ago, was that under no circumstances are we to read the prayer or the reading from Proverbs Eshet Chayil at her service, at the cemetery. And Jeff told me he was going to make reference to it, but he obviously changed it and edited it out. I'm not going to read it because she asked not to, but I just want to say that Eshet Chayil translates to a woman of valor, and for a long time it was this prayer from the book of Proverbs, often read in particularly Orthodox homes by the husband to the wife on Friday night, and then read a lot of times at funerals, and I've read it many times too. It's just kind of fitting that a woman who really truly was a woman of valor and everything she did in life didn't want us to stand around and read about how she was a woman in valor. But I think that's the beauty of Shelley Blum, is that we don't need to say it out loud to know it. Anybody who knew her, anybody who spent time with her, myself included, she was. Strength, determination, a progressive attitude, someone well before her time who thrived in her time. May she rest in peace. I'll now recite the El Malei Rachamim prayer in honor of Shelley Blum. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamromi Hamsei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina B'malot Kedoshim Uteorim Kezohar Arakia Mazhirim Et Nishmat Rachel Bat Shmuel Halevi Verivka Shelcha Leolama Began Eidente Menuchata Hanabal Harachamim Hastirea Beseter Kedafecha Leolamim utzror bitzror achayim enishmata Adonai hu nachalata v'tanuach v'shalom hamishkava v'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Shelley Blum, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that she find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And let us say together, Amen.
Amen.
Thank you again to everyone for being here in person, or again for tuning in. There will be a meal of consolation following this service in the common room at 141 Wellington Crescent. And there will be 2 periods of Shiva visits, where the family will be accepting visitors. Monday night, tomorrow night from 7 to 9, with prayers at 7:30. And Tuesday afternoon from 1 to 4, again at Shelley's home at 141 Wellington Crescent. In the meantime, I encourage everyone to continue to reach out to Shelley's loved ones, to join your hearts together with theirs, to give them courage and strength during this truly difficult time, with your text messages, your phone calls, your emails, and when you see them, with your hugs and stories and smiles. In a moment, we will recite the words of the Mourner's Kaddish. Then the family will lead us, and everyone here will have the opportunity to perform the mitzvah of shoveling earth into the grave. A few quick words about this. In different cemeteries around the world, different people have different customs. Some people will use the front of the shovel. Some people will use the back of the shovel. Some people will return the shovel when they're done to the earth. Some people will pass it to the next person. The one thing that does seem to be common across is that most people pour 3 shovelfuls of earth, but for the other rituals, the ones with which you are familiar are the ones you should embrace. To make this, of course, a more meaningful and powerful act. It's a mitzvah, it's a righteous act, a selfless act we do without hope of any reward, that extends to something we mentioned at the beginning, caring for our loved ones until the very end. In Jewish tradition, we believe that our loved ones deserve to be buried by our own hands, kind, knowing, sorrowful hands, hands that once held their hands. And so while we recognize this can be a painful act, we remind ourselves that it is one born of love and compassion for someone who meant so much to many people. Earlier in the service, we offered the words of Job, the epitome of suffering in Jewish tradition, and we say them again now. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach. God, you have given, God, you have taken, blessed be the name of God. May Shelley Blum's memory endure as a blessing, as we mark that her essence will never leave our hearts and our souls. The Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabah mevorach le'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'it hadar, v'it aleh, v'it halal, shemei dekudsha, brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the one who creates peace and harmony on high bring peace and harmony to us, to all Israel, and to all humanity. As again we say, Amen. To the family we offer the words, Hamakom yinachem etchem betoch sha'ar avelei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you whenever and wherever needed. May God comfort and console you among all those who are or who have ever been in mourning in our community. Again, we thank you all for being here to honor Shelley, and we invite the family to lead us in the ritual of shoveling earth.